Awesome. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our February webinar. We're just going to give everybody a few minutes to log in and join us today.
There we go. We have your slide up, Laura, just so you know.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I just wanted to see it looks a little different than the last time. So Teams is always changing features, but welcome everybody. We are very excited to have you here for our February webinar session. So we're going to have an excellent conversation today with Vassos on the topic of AI and integrations in construction, looking into some of the ways that companies can get better at predicting outcomes, improve their productivity. And just as we wait for everybody to get on the call and join us, we'll go over a couple of housekeeping reminders for our webinar sessions here. First of all, we will post all of our webinar recordings, including today's session, on our website. You just have to go to nialli.com/events. We've also got these sessions up on our YouTube channel as well. Anybody who is registered that has not been able to make today's session, I will send out a link automatically as soon as I have the file processed, but otherwise just check back to our website or our YouTube channel if you'd like to get a recap of today's webinar session. In addition, we do have our next webinar scheduled for March 27th. We're very excited to be welcoming Sean Gray. He is the CEO of ConstructIQ Technologies, and Sean has a wealth of knowledge in the space of digital adoption. He comes from construction himself, but he's spent the last 2 decades helping companies move into new technologies and explore different options that are out there. In addition to this, if you do happen to be based in Vancouver, we are actually going to be presenting in a technology showcase Sean is putting together next week on February 26th at the Vancouver BuildX conference. And this is going to be facilitated by the Prairies PropTech Association. So if you are in the region, we definitely encourage you to come check this out. You'll hear from us. You'll hear from several other startups within the Western Canada region. And Sean's also going to be hosting a happy hour after that event next week in Vancouver if you're in that area. But otherwise, we definitely encourage you to come join us and register for our March 27th webinar. And in addition to that, we've got a very full calendar of upcoming events. If you are interested in learning more about Nialli, meeting our team, we will be at New York Build, Austin Build in March, and then we've got quite a few events coming up here in April, building transformations, early April in Austin, Texas. We've got the P3C conference in Dallas, the 5th annual Last Planner System conference. This is actually a new event. Previous to this, the Lean Construction blog has been doing these sessions virtually. This is now going to be their first in-person hybrid event as well. They are going to actually be recording these sessions, but a 3-day conference down in San Francisco, California. So if you are a Last Planner System Lean enthusiast, we definitely encourage you to check this event out. And then finally, we've got the Associated Schools of Construction conference happening in April in our own backyard at State School here in Calgary, Alberta. So if you're local to the Calgary area, that could be a great event to check out as well. And with that, I would like to welcome Vassos as our webinar guest today. And Vassos is the Chief Operating Officer at AIforSite. And I'm going to pass it over to Alan Boyke at Nialli, who's going to be interviewing Vassos on his experiences in construction. So Alan, the floor is yours.
Right on. Thank you, Laura, for the intro, and welcome everybody. And it's my pleasure to introduce Vassos Chrysostomou to our session today. We spent a lot of time talking about the industry and realized that Vassos has a wealth of knowledge and some interesting stories to share with this group. So why don't we start, Vassos, by just telling us a little bit about yourself, how you got into construction and seminal moments that, you know, brought you to today.
Excellent. Hi, Alan. Thank you very much. Before I go into that, I just want to say to everybody that please feel free to fire any questions as we go along through the whole session. Don't wait until the end, just in case you forget what to ask, etc. So please jump in anytime. As I said, my name is Vassos. I've been working in the construction industry since 1996. So coming up to my 40th year. Before that, I was a professional student, as I used to call myself, full-time lecturer at Southampton University, etc. So my life changed. Well, in '96, I joined BAA that runs Terminal 5 or Heathrow Airport in the UK. And I just happened to put my hand up when somebody at the front of my presentation at the conference, I says, I need somebody to help me to prove my new thinking of how we're going to change construction. And that person was Sir John Egan, a chairman of Jaguar, who just joined BAA to be able to make BAA effective and efficient and productive enough in order to afford to build Terminal 5, a $5 billion plus project, the biggest project in the UK for a long, long time. And the UK industry had the reputation of always delivering late and over budget by a huge amount. And obviously he didn't want that. So he had his own ideas how to do things. And he was asking for volunteers. So I put my hand up, volunteered, and then that's the November 16th, 1996 is when my life changed. I became what I am today because of that day and because of that individual. He's my giant. When I first joined him, the first thing he asked me when we start talking about projects, Alan, was, what do you measure in construction? And I said, oh, gosh, how long have you got? We could measure cost, we measure program, we measure health and safety, we measure inside leg measurements, quality control, everything. And he looked at me funny and he said, no, Vassos, what are you measuring? Come on. And I said, well, that's it. That's a list of about 15 matrices. He says, no, you're measuring the wrong thing. What's your productivity of your guys on your construction side? And I said, what? What is productivity? What's the definition? He says, what do you mean? You're in construction for so many years, etc., and you don't know what productivity is? He said, no. He said, well, every other industry in the world measures productivity. Why doesn't construction? Better go out and find out, Vassos. So that's what I did. I went to our building research establishment, a well-known institution in the UK, in North London, and I asked them that question. I said, what's productivity? And they laughed at me. They looked at me funny and says, we used to do that back in the 60s and 70s, Vassos, when everybody had direct labor, everybody owned their own resources. They all wanted to know how productive those resources were, how much of their time, their tool time or wrench time or whatever the definition is, they were spending actually making the building grow, being productive, because it was their direct labor. And we used to do time and motion studies. And I said, wow, what's that? And he says, well, you just put a number of, you get an individual to sit down with the team and watch what they're doing and record down how much of their time was actually physically laying bricks or laying steel or pouring concrete or whatever they were doing. And that was going to be the productive time. Anything else was wasted tool time, non-productive, non-added value. And he says, well, since the mid-70s, when we invented that there's a new profession called quantity surveying, that they came up with subcontracting, then the industry lost all those measures, all that data, all that information, because the only thing they're worried about is you gave me a price, you gave me a program. So therefore, as long as you can meet that price and as long as you meet that program, I don't care how productive or I don't care how you do it, but you've got to meet your milestones. You've got to meet your program. And that's when I began to understand what productivity was all about. So 4 projects and 6 years before Terminal 5, we started our first productivity measure in the UK in my era. And we started with a simple car park. And we found to our surprise that the productivity of that team was no more than 40%. 40% of their time was actually making the building grow, and 40% of their time was actually wasting, moving. And when I went back to Egan and I said, well, this is what my data is showing, he says, come with me. So we went up to my top floor of our site accommodation. And he says, what are you looking at, Vassos? I said, oh, I'm looking at my project. Yeah, I said, but what can you see? What can you see? I said, well, I can see a lot of people running around and a lot of people working, etc. He says, yeah, that's right. you are seeing people walking around, moving. Why are they moving? What is the cause of them moving around the site, apart from going to the toilet or having lunch breaks, tea breaks, etc.? And that's when I began to understand the real benefit that any movement in the construction industry site is a wasted time. And we used to put numbers on people's helmets at that time in 96. So you are number 55, you are a carpenter. You are number 96, you are an electrician, or whatever it was. And then we used to employ year-out students, the modern way of slavery at that time, where we can teach them how to measure things, but also they were the cheapest form of resource I can get my hands on. And those students used to look around every 20 minutes and record what everybody was doing. And it used to take us about 4 weeks to get the data analyzed back from BRE. And then we used to sit down and do something about it, identify the causes, and then doing an action plan to eliminate that problem, that cause of waste. So by the time we came along to Terminal 5, 6 years later and 4 projects later, we moved our we moved our wasted tool time from 40% to 10%. We were 80% of the resources on site were actually productive. And that's why Terminal 5 was delivered on time and on budget in 2008.
Right. And you continue your quest today around productivity. And in some of our previous conversations, you've actually used the word crisis, that there's still a productivity crisis in the construction industry. I mean, you just told an amazing story. There's obviously a way of raising your productivity. Why is it that there's still a crisis, as you call it?
There's still a crisis because the main element of the construction industry, 95%, 97% of the construction industry do not have direct labor. So therefore, they believe that the matrix of delivery on time and on budget is the only thing that matters. But we know very well that on every single task, on every single activity, the subcontractors that actually carry out the work will build up a series of non-added value time, a series of problems and issues that turn up on every construction site that if they haven't allowed for, will become a contractual issue for them as a subcontractor. So therefore, they build into their program and into their cost plan between 30 to 50% wasted tool time. So when somebody gives you an activity in a program that says it's going to take 10 weeks, you know within those 10 weeks, there is anything between 30 to 50% wasted tool time. So, pardon me, I got a bit of a cough. So the crisis is still there because we are still, as an industry, do not have a project or a relationship matrix that focus on productivity. We just still carry on measuring time and cost, in addition to the usual fundamentals of health and safety and social environmental measures, of course. So the crisis is still there because the transitional model is still the main model that drives the construction industry out there.
Right.
You know, what's the common thing between Taylor Swift and SpaceX? Do you know that?
Well, I do, because you shared a document with me. I'm going to cheat, but why don't you share that story? It's actually an interesting one. It makes the point.
Exactly. The main issue, the main common element between Taylor Swift and SpaceX is that they own, or they have a relationship on the complete vertical supply chain to deliver their outcomes. So Taylor Swift has ownership of marketing, of I don't know, venues, setting up, ticket sales, everything. SpaceX has the complete supply chain of everything. So the continuous improvement is a benefit to the whole model. So therefore, the industry, in order to survive, has to go back to the future, unfortunately, Alan. We need to go back to the future in the 60s and 70s or earlier, where we either have an enterprise business model, or we have a relationship with a key 5 or 6 key 6 key supply chain members that we treat them as part of the family. So therefore, the understanding of productivity will actually drive the profitability and the turnover of everybody within that vertical business model.
Yeah, it's interesting that you point to that. Our last webinar with Glenn Ballard, he talked about the difference between a relational contract, which is a little bit what you're talking about, that everybody, you know, the relationship or vertical integration or you know, you've got skin in the game is different than the transactional, call it buffer oriented planning. So let's talk about that. So that buffer that's built in, you mentioned predictability, how it's different than productivity, but how are they related?
Okay. I mean, it's very important to understand that in order to manage a project and be able to control and report on your program, you need the last planners to be on board. You can't do it with high-level programs. You have to go to level 5, and level 5 in the UK is what we call our weekly collaborative planning, weekly collaborative plans. You call them last planners. We call them collaborative planning, but it's the principles are the same. So the whole idea behind it is that you need to go to the nth degree and sit down with the people, the only people that add value to the construction process, by the way, Alan, are the operatives and supervisors on site. Everybody else is supposed to be feeding them with water, with food, with the drawings, with materials, right. Whatever you want to feed those guys on the ground, yeah, to be able to do their work effectively, not efficiently, necessarily, effectively, and go home safely and happy and well, you know, every day. And unfortunately, we, the 95% people that are supposed to be feeding them with all the right resources, all the right information, etc., at the right time, at the right place, we are the ones that are letting them down. We know from data that 99% of the causes of non-delivering something is got nothing to do with the operatives. They want to do their job safely, well, in the right time, at the right space, and go home to their families feeling that they achieved something. So therefore, predictability doesn't necessarily give you productivity, because if you have 30% of your time within your task already planned to be wasteful, therefore delivering that something on time on the day that you promise you're going to do it, it's good, but it's not does not equate to production, to being productive. So therefore, what we've done in the last 6 months or so, we took the visual planner and introduced it to our productivity measurement system, and we got our AI, Wendy, to be able to actually say, okay, you plan to have 2 guys for 3 days working on a plan. Actually, I'm monitoring all the operatives, and actually there were 4 different operatives operating against that activity on that location, because she knows exactly where everybody is on site. And actually, instead of taking, I don't know, 24 hours, 3 guys, 2 guys, 3 days, that's 48 hours, they've completed the job in only 24 hours. And actually out of those, only 20% were wasteful as well. So next time you plan for that task, you should be thinking about, can I do it with less man hours? Can I do it faster? Have I learned why those causes are actually there? And have we sat down as a team in our last planners and meetings to actually ask the whys and identify the causes in order to eliminate that, not only the non-predictability, but also the non-productivity as well. So the two are married together. You don't have to have separate reviews and separate discussions.
Yeah, we'll talk exactly about what you did. I'd just like to back up for a second in your timeline and just tell us a little bit about Heathrow and what happened to turn it from, potentially a mess, as you would say, into on time and on budget. And what were the lessons learned that you're trying to, create now with the advantage of digital technologies?
As I said, we used to put numbers on people's helmets. We used to have students recording everything down on an Excel spreadsheet in those days, back in 96, 97.
Right.
And we used to scan them and send them off to BRE. BRE would do the analytics or review every data, because we were recording data every 20 minutes, hundreds of people on site. So, and then they will come back to us with the red areas, with the wasted tool time or non-added value activities. And then we will get the teams, the supervisors and the teams, to sit down with the project management team and say, okay, guys, why there was so much waste? And then we will discuss it. We had the standard reasons that came from the last planner as a guide. And then we will get down to the 5 whys. The first why is always an excuse. So,
True.
if you say to somebody why there was a problem, why didn't you finish something? So I didn't have the materials. And they say, okay, materials. No. Why didn't you have the materials? Oh, because there was late delivery. Why was it late delivery? It was because the material delivery guys had a problem with the putting together the order. Why did they have a problem putting the order together? Oh, because we didn't get paid in time, so there was an issue in the finance. So why didn't you feel paid on time? Oh, because the cash flow from BAA to the subcontract or to the main contractor and the subcontractor was delayed. So suddenly it was nothing to do with materials. It was something to do with the payment methodology that BAA introduced as part of the main contractor's discipline that was causing the delay on the program and on the material side of things. So wait a minute, why can't we actually have a project account where all the money goes there and everybody gets paid from there instantaneously? Why have the holdups? And surprise, surprise, we've never had any other material delays after that.
Wow.
So those are the kind of things that you find out by asking the 5 simple whys. And that is a people issue. It's got nothing to do with technology. It's got nothing to do with management. It's about sitting down with the team and making them part of the analysis and review, and then showing them that actually you are listening to them. So next time they come up with a problem, they will jump over backwards to tell you what that problem is, and that you don't have to ask the 5 whys. You'd be amazed how quickly people learn that actually Vassos is going to ask me 5 times, so I may as well jump to number 5 already and give them the true reason rather than actually play around with politics.
Yeah, and I think you're going to probably get questions around contracts and payment terms, and if I all of a sudden improve my productivity, well, I'm going to just keep quiet because the rest is profit to me. Somebody's going to ask about that.
Absolutely,
I'm sure.
But not if you want that continuous relationship with me. Yeah, A as a client or as a B as a main contractor.
Right.
Because if you open up and we have an open book relationship, and you keep on reducing your man hours, then me as a main contractor will be able to reduce my programs, reduce my cost. That means I will be winning more work. And because you are part of my business model, you are part of my family, therefore you will be one of 4 guys that will be working on that project. So therefore, you will win more work. And it's all about profit margin rather than cash.
Right.
So your profit
Right.
margin will keep on increasing and making you much more profitable organization. And of course, that means, and this is what we are finding even now in the UK, you can do more with the same resource.
Right.
Because one of the biggest challenges the UK construction industry has, at least the UK, but I'm sure it's worldwide, is we are running out of workforce.
Definitely.
Because either people don't want to enter in the industry, and also we got a very old retiree kind of profile on our workforce. So we are now in the UK, we need 250,000 new operatives to join the industry by 2028, by the end of this parliament. Otherwise the government will not meet their goals that they set in their parliament. So therefore, they're not going to get re-elected. So, but how are we going to recruit 250,000 more operatives out of the thin blue skies? Well, we can't. But if we improve the productivity of an operative on site by 2%, that's 12 minutes a day. That's an hour a week. Let's say you got 1 million operatives that are actually working on new build projects in the UK. That's 1 million hours a week extra by just 2% improvement in productivity. Suddenly, we don't have a workforce problem.
Yeah.
So,
the math is interesting. All of a sudden, I only need 80,000 more new operatives.
yeah,
Right.
or you only need to improve an average 5 or 6% a year to not need any at all. And all I need is to replenish the ones that are retiring, rather than having to recruit 250,000 in 4 years, in 3 years.
Right.
Sorry, what am I talking about? It's 3 years now.
Right.
So that is one of the biggest challenges we learned from Terminal 5, that first of all, you got to have direct labor.
Right.
Nobody on Terminal 5, none of the big packages were allowed to come to site if they did not have direct labor. That was a rule number 1. Rule number 2 was you are here to reach 80% productivity. And if you do reach 80% productivity, surprise, surprise, we'll pay you more.
Oh, so you actually did incentivize.
Incentivization, of course. And not only because we love them, it's because they were doing twice, we paid them more because they were doing twice as much as everybody else in the construction industry.
It's win-win,
So
right?
it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah.
And and obviously our investors on Terminal 5, and then the Olympics, and then Stansted extension, etc. Our investors were very keen to make sure that we delivered it on time, on budget, rather than trying to come back with excuses after excuses of why things didn't finish on time, like every other infrastructure project, at least in the UK, ever since that, it's been suffering.
Well, it certainly is quite a terminal. I think they have the biggest bolts in the world holding up some of those those
and you know
pillars.
how many times that roof was built?
No.
About 16 different times. There are 16 times, but not at Terminal 5. It was built off-site, so the teams practice and practice and practice and practice until they could do it blindfold. And then when they came to construction site, they did it right first time.
Yeah, I think that could be another topic is the move towards, manufactured prefab modular, but that'll be another time. I want to make sure that we jump into the AI part of things. And I know it's being driven by measuring productivity. That's your way forward on this. But why don't you talk a little bit about AI in construction, its possibilities, and then the work that you're doing, your case study, we'll call it, or initiative, so that people know exactly what you're doing with Wendy and Planner and BIM models, etc., sensors. Why don't you launch into that?
Okay. Obviously, in the last couple of years, technologies has improved tremendously. So now, instead of actually, sorry, if I share my screen for a second, it would be quite easy for you to see what I'm talking about. Now, instead of having a number of people's helmets, we have little Bluetooth fobs, as you can see from the screen, on every helmet.
Now, these are anonymous, right? Like they're
totally anonymous. Only thing we record is their trade. So every one of those Bluetooth has a number, 568 or whatever it is, and the only thing we're recording is their trade. There's no other information required at all. They're worn on their helmets, and those Bluetooth beacons send a signal every 30 seconds or so. And those signals have been picked up by a set of anchors that define your spatial zones. So in Visual Planner, or in any last planner process, you identify, I'm going to have 3 guys working on the 3rd floor toilets in Core A. So those anchors are positioned in such a way that they define that zone. And any operative, if any operative spending more than 5 minutes in that zone is deemed to be productive. And that has been developed over the years from UK, USA, Finland, etc. by operational research, academic research, etc. So nobody can dispute that. And those beacons form a network that send the information through a gateway through a gateway connected to the internet on a SIM card back to our offices. Now, if you're going to have, like we have at the moment, 600 operatives on a construction site, every 30 seconds we got a reading coming from each one of those Bluetooth beacons. It's nearly impossible. No, it is impossible, because trying to actually identify that on an Excel spreadsheet expert and trying to set up a mechanism by which you identify where they are, how much time they spend, are they productive or non-productive, then that's where AI comes in. So we are using Wendy, which is the name for our AI, to become a productivity engineer. So Wendy basically tracks in real time all the operatives on the construction site. So as you can see from this screen here, you can actually see the different color helmets available for different operatives on site. So in this case, blue is electricians, red is fire installers. I just copied this just now before we started. So there's not that many people on site because it's 4:30 in the UK. But in addition to that, we actually put in beacons on equipment. And we can actually begin now talking to people about putting beacons on material pallets. So that allows everybody in the team to know exactly what all their resources are. And therefore, by getting Wendy to analyze the data, Wendy can then, in real time, and this is a real-time dashboard, which I did last week, just to give you an illustration. This element here is the information that comes from Nialli or any other last planner process, but this is from Nialli. So we know the task, we know the location, we know the contractor, the start and finish dates of that task, and the first number is what is identified in Nialli as a resource allocation, the crew size or whatever you want to call it. And then
that's pulled using the API. That's
absolutely right. Totally hands-free.
Right.
So because Wendy needs to be doing this by herself. There's no human involved in this process at all. And that's another positive side of it, because we as humans like to filter, let's say, data to not to show us off. We like to put our zinc on it. So because it's going to go to my boss, so therefore, if I can change it slightly by a few percents here and there, and as we go up the line, it changes more and more, and therefore, by the time it goes to my managing director, I'm brilliant, So Wendy doesn't hallucinate. She doesn't lie. She reports exactly what she sees. So Wendy, in this case, picked up a number of operatives that spend more than 5 minutes on that task in that area. irrespective of what it is. So if it's blue, means more resources have visited that area than what it was planned. Obviously, red means there haven't been anybody that recorded in there. And if there was a green one, it means that it's exactly the same as what was planned. So
Right.
automatically, Wendy can verify in real time that what you are planning, you're actually delivering. You don't have to wait until the end of the day or the end of the week to do your visual planner. So therefore, as a construction manager, I can actually go to this dashboard and I can see, oh yeah, I got the right resources. Wait a minute, why are there 10 on that task and 0 here? I can actually walk up there, see the subcontractor manager and have a go at them, because you guys planning to have one guy working there is not. Why not? And I can do that at 10 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning. So therefore I can preemptively manage my job every day, before and I don't have to wait until the end of the day to find out actually we did not achieve that task. So it is very powerful tool for the day-to-day construction manager. And then of course, because we're using the 5-minute rule, we identify how much of their hours are productive, how much are statutory, basically, welfare time, and how much is wasted. And there, by knowing that, how much wasted, then the team can sit down either once a day, it's up to them, or once a week is your usual protocol, and actually ask those 5 whys, develop an action plan, and improve. So all that review is done, continuously, so you can improve your whole process. So the whole idea behind it is to give real-time information and management information to the team to be able to see everything that's happening on their construction site.
It's really interesting. You started the story with Sir John Egan taking you up and having you look at the construction site. He would be very, very proud of this because you answered his question. What is going on? What's the heartbeat? What is really going on down there? And you've done it. I find this amazing.
And we've done it without having to, in real time.
Right, and that's what I mean.
In the last, we couldn't do it until 3 years ago or 2 years ago, to be honest. Because even 2 years ago, when we had the data come back to our offices from our website, it used to take us 6 or 7 hours to actually work that data, analyze the data, and give it back to the team. So it was always a day late. It was very close to a real time, but it wasn't real time. Now that dashboard, it's real time. I can log in. So we are using it on a Mace job at the moment in the UK, where the project director he's got it on his phone, on his iPad, and on his PC and his laptop. So it doesn't matter where he is, anywhere in the world, and he's that kind of person, unfortunately, even on the train. And today he was his day off, and we still had a chat about it because he picked up something, and I had a chat with him about it. But he can actually see exactly what's going on in his project.
Yeah.
And he can do something about it to continuously improve it. And that is the whole point. Mm-hmm. It improves the well-being of the operatives because, on this project at Heathrow, in Mace in London, it's a 16-floor building. Yeah. And we got operatives walking up and down those stairs continuously. Do you know how many kilometers each operative in that side is walking every day? I can tell you, it's just between 7.5 and 8 kilometers a day.
Wow.
About 16,000 steps, and they usually walk at least 6 flights of stairs every day. Now, am I paying them to do that? Well, the client is already paying them to do it. But if I was driving this waste out, that's not adding value to me. But also, are we aware what it does to them, to their well-being? Is everybody fit enough to be doing that?
Well, and I've been
So
to this, I've been to the site, and there's parts that you need to walk through that are unsafe as well. I
yeah,
mean, there's all
absolutely.
kinds of, or now I'm carrying drywall where I shouldn't be carrying it, and it's risky and
Yeah.
harmful, all those things. I just want to remind everybody, please put questions in for, I haven't been
Yeah,
checking the list.
we do actually have a couple that have just come in. The
Okay.
first one is
Okay,
from
good.
Jeff on, how do we how do we capture necessary waste, things like taking a lunch break, going to the washroom,
Oh,
stuff like that.
yeah. We basically there is allocated time and space for that. So if somebody is leaving the construction area, then obviously, the construction zones, and it goes into a welfare zone, that's it. That's where we turn it off. Yeah.
Yeah, you call it
So
welfare, I
we
remember
call it
seeing on your
welfare,
chart. Yeah.
statutory time or whatever. So we are interested on, every day in the UK, they're supposed to be working between 8 and 4 o'clock, 8 hours a day, normal construction site. 1 hour of that a day is spent on what we call statutory welfare, health and safety talks, tea breaks, lunch breaks, etc. So we are interested on the remaining 7 hours. And out of those 7 hours, at the moment, on average in the UK, they are wasting 3 hours. And that's the average of the UK construction industry. So we're not interested in statutory. That's what they're supposed to be spending their time, the welfare facilities. That's fine. Now, if somebody's abusing that, well, the team already knows who goes for a smoke every 5 minutes,
Yeah,
or
that's right.
who goes for a drink, or, oh, I need to go to the toilet or whatever. It doesn't need Wendy to tell them who that person is.
Yeah,
That's
that's
not
true.
what Wendy is all about.
Right.
Sorry,
Here's
it was another
here's another.
question?
Yeah, Judy asks, what do the workers think about being, she used the term micromanaged. Like, how does
Oh,
that
they're not.
affect morale?
It's not. They love it. The
Oh, okay.
reason they love it is that for the first time, I mean, or initially, okay, I'll tell a lie. On the first package we tried out, it was unfortunately a group of East Europeans working in London. And we have a bit of a cultural issue in the first couple of weeks because they didn't want to be tagged, what they call tagged or monitor, because of the culture of Eastern European in terms of, Big Brother watching you. But
Mm,
once I said to them, look, I don't care. Within your group, I'm only interested what your gang is doing. Yeah, a gang of 4 is supposed to be doing dry lining on the second floor. If you want to swap beacons between you, feel free to do that. I don't care. I'm not monitoring you as an individual. And by the time we spent 6 weeks with them, and they started a wasted tool time of 40%, and they were on price, by the way. That means they were paid for doing a certain amount of work. And
mm,
they by the time we finished with them, they only wasted 20% of their time. That means they were finishing faster. That means they went somewhere else and earned more money. So they, and until now, although we don't monitor that package anymore because it's sporadic, surprise, surprise, they're still wearing those beacons.
nice.
They don't care. So when it came to other packages like electricians and plumbers where they're directly employed, and that's when they start saying, Vassos, thank you very much. I said, what do you mean? Well, I've been telling them all these years what the problems were, why I'm walking up and down the stairs, and none of my managers wanted to know. They just told me to get on with it. Come on. Now you're giving them some real data about how much money we are wasting. Suddenly, my director is actually very keen to make sure that I don't walk up and
Right.
down the stairs. And one of the things that they love about it is now we are attacking their equipment and their materials. Suddenly, he doesn't have to go and look for a ladder. All he has to do in the WhatsApp group in that company, he can send a message and say to his supervisor, I need a ladder in the next half hour on the 6th floor. And surprise, surprise, the ladder appears by a laborer who is costing the company only £12 an hour rather than an electrician that's costing £45 an hour trying to search around the site to find the ladder. So he
Right.
doesn't have to walk up and down searching for anything. he can actually things come to him when he wants it, how he wants it, at the time he wants it. So now the operatives are, as I said, are loving it, because for the first time people are beginning to understand the problems that used to, stress them, used to get them upset about chasing things, etc.
Right.
It's
There's a
about talking
question.
and communicating.
There was a question a while ago from Tim that we missed. This was the idea that you hit 80% productivity and get paid more if you
Yeah.
can.
Mm-hmm.
And he's saying, did I hear that correctly? Delivering what you promised on time is no longer productive? He said that's a big shift. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, I mean, if you say it's going to take me 10 weeks, and I'll give you an example. The fire installation gang, they had one floor to do. They allowed for 160 hours and 4 weeks to do it in. Okay? For 2 guys. In reality, they done it in 59 hours. Yeah? And they only done it in the last 2 weeks of the 4-week period. So when it comes to the next floor up, yeah, the team didn't say to them, okay, you done it in 59, now you got to do it in 50 or 60. They say, okay, guys, let's reduce that down to 3 weeks and 80 hours and monitor it again. So the gradual improvement of productivity allows them to be able to do more of their time. So that means those 2 guys could go off to another job or to another project and earn more money. Now, on Terminal 5, because we had direct labor at level as the tier 1 subcontractors, we gave them those targets. And we said, look, if you hit 80% productivity, or we're starting with, let's say, 60% to start with, then every incremental you will get a bonus. But you have to be telling us how to reduce the man hours, how to reduce your durations. So because nothing gets built overnight in a single phase. Terminal 5 had 19 different projects. It had 19 different, dry lining packages. It had 19 mechanical electrical packages. It had 19 steel packages, cladding. So therefore, by learning in real time as much as possible, what are you doing on the current project, at the current phase, and passing it on to the next one on a contractual environment that allows you to reduce your program, reduce your cost, but not your profit element. So what do you used to do? And this is one of the things, beautiful things about changing the contracts. We used to say to them, okay, you identified 1,000 man hours to do the job. And that's 1,000 man hours is £100, let's say, of profit margin, yeah, or profit. That £100 is yours. Whatever happens, so that's your profit. Now, if you can finish your job at 800 hours, yeah, we pay you for the 800 hours, but we're not going to hit your £100 profit. So suddenly you are making more profit on less man hours. So your profit margin has increased. Now you're going to be working with me on the next project, and therefore your profit margin of being 10%, suddenly it becomes 15% profit margin, because it's £100, sorry, 12%, £100 to 800. So therefore your profit margin on the next project is higher. So
True.
you are continuously earning more money, and you're doing more with the same workforce. And that's why we said, their salaries were increased, the bonuses were given.
Interesting. I'm just mindful of the time. I do have one more question that I see, and that's, are there particular specific trades that have more or less wasted time than others, or is it across the board common?
I mean, across the board, it changes. It changes depending who you are, what kind of project you're doing. But I will say the key packages, you won't be surprised to hear that, but the key packages are to do with mechanical, electrical, fit out, dry lining, those are the kind of packages that are the highest. They have the highest interface issues or the risk profiles with other trades, with the lack of materials or changes in design, or or the prerequisite things that need to happen, etc. Whereas on a typical construction site, you have somebody doing the groundwork. So usually they're all by themselves. Yeah, there's no many interfaces with other trades, so there's no apart from and the other thing everybody used to say to me, weather vessels. Well, how big is the weather as a wasted tool time? Less than 5% is to do with weather. And the same with client changes. Everybody thinks client changes are the biggest cause of waste. Less than 6% is client changes. So some of the early packages are more productive, but you will expect that. But the moment you start introducing a couple of trades together, like putting a frame, you get a frame and then you go cladding, you go glazing, you go roofing, you're beginning to see that black holes appearing all over your site, i.e. areas that nobody's working on for whatever reason, because there's a lack of information, lack of materials, lack of design, or whatever it is. So I think the internal fit out packages are the biggest opportunity, let's put it that way.
It is, it is more complex. And you and I talked about prefab and pre-manufacturing modules rather than stringing one wire for through 55,000 studs. I think we're at time, Vassos. I've enjoyed some of your insights and some of the math that we may not think about in terms of, what's in it for me, where is the profit in being more productive. And I think that became pretty clear for myself. And so I appreciate your insights. I see another couple posts.
Yeah, I'm not going anywhere.
It's a thank you from Judy.
That's
in
all right.
capital in capital letters, which is even more of a thank you. So I think that's really awesome. Thank you.
Guys, I'm here anytime. I'm on LinkedIn. Send me a WhatsApp. I'm one of those guys that this is not a job. It's a hobby. I love what I do. And therefore, I want to share this across as many people as possible to infect this not a new virus, not necessarily a new virus, but to make sure that we do go back to the future, to make sure that we actually, wake up Sleeping Beauty. I think I heard the other day, the construction industry's productivity is the Sleeping Beauty of a country's industry, and we need to wake her up. And maybe Wendy is the right person to go and wake her up, or maybe it's a Prince Charming, but we need to improve that productivity.
Well, I am going to call you Prince Charming now, Vassos.
Oh, no, don't go there.
You are going to wake up Sleeping Beauty. And on that note, I appreciate your dedication. It is infectious, and thank you so much for being with us today. And I think we'll, on that note, positive note, we'll sign off. Unless Laura, is there anything, Laura, that you wanted to close off with?
No, I think that's everything. Thank you, Vassos. That was a fantastic discussion.
You're welcome anytime.
All right, everyone. Take care.
See you, everyone.
And we'll goodbye from Wendy as well. Bye.
All right.
Bye.